today is another political forum, and it's going to be a little unusual because one of the participants is going to be coming late. We are having Navarra Carr, the incumbent for position 6 on the city council, and her opponent is Mark Karjalainen. Did I do it right? Okay, good. And he is a firefighter for the city of Port Angeles, so his schedule's a little wonky, and so he's in swim. He's in swim now. At least I got his name right. Anyway, he thought he could get here by 7:30, so we're hoping for that. So Jim is going to manage moderating this unusual forum, and he will introduce the candidates. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Laurel. Well, this is our fourth political forum this year. A few more to, and we'll start out. And our plan is ordinarily we would have a 3-minute opening statement, and then move to the next one, and let each one of them have a 1-minute rebuttal before we went into questions. So what we're going to do this morning is Navarra is going to talk and start out and take as long as you want, and then we'll go to questions until Mark shows up, and then we'll let him have a statement, and we'll move on with questions from there. So be thinking about your questions. So Navarra, please start us off.
You want me up at the mic? The feedback I've heard, you got to make your opening remarks shorter, so I'm a talker. I've heard something to say that I'm the new president of the board of the Fine Arts Center, and so it's especially nice to hear that you're going to be helping with our celebration of shadows and Wintertide. They're events that I'm really excited for. Mark's just walking through the door, perfect timing. So you'll see me all next weekend as well, and I want to thank you for serving our community and for your commitment. That's all good. It's always better to have a robust debate with both candidates, so I'm really glad that Mark made it. I'm going to keep going. So I wanted to thank you all for having me today, and I wanted to share a little bit more about who I am and my story and what brought me here to public service and to the city council. So growing up, my parents helped instill strong values around justice, compassion, and the power of service. And it was especially nice, I think, to hear the thoughts earlier around happening in Gaza and Israel, and about justice and compassion, and being able to treat everybody with those values in mind, because they're values that I also share. When I ran for city council 4 years ago, it was with those values in mind, and I wanted to make a positive change in our community, and these values have been a through line throughout my entire life. I grew up in a small town and immediately left after high school, thinking that my hometown was just too small. And of course, now these are the same things that I'm living in a small town. But at 18, I just had to get out and go somewhere, go to the big city. I went to Sacramento State University. And after college, I began my life of public service in earnest and served for 2 years in AmeriCorps, and then worked for 3 years as an office and finance manager at a homeless service nonprofit. And then I moved to Port Angeles after this and worked at 2 land trusts here in Clallam and in Jefferson County. And the land trust is really where I got to know our community. And I love getting to meet people, learn about our history of place, and work towards a vision of Port Angeles that I believed in. But of course, when COVID hit, my job, like so many other people's jobs, changed drastically. And even though I have a college degree and was working at a good job, I was having a hard time making ends meet. So I decided to go back to school, and now I'm a 3rd-year law student at Seattle University, where I attend classes remotely. And I've been able to build connections right here with our own legal community, which is where I plan on practicing after I graduate. So of course, being on city council has also changed my life in ways that I never expected. Local politics provides a place where I can directly see the impact of my actions and get to put my values of justice, compassion, and service into practice. These are the values that guide the policies I support and the decisions that I make. And getting to talk to people like you always gives me insights into how I can work to make Port Angeles better. And this is the work I want to continue to do, advocating on behalf of ordinary people to make their lives better. Thank you.
Now we have Mark Karjalainen.
Very good. Mark Karjalainen. Hello, my name is Mark Karjalainen. I have lived my entire life in Western Washington, with the last 2 decades here in Port Angeles. I graduated from Oak Harbor High School on Whidbey Island before venturing to Central Washington University, just long enough to become a paramedic. I quickly returned for taking a job with the City of Port Angeles Fire Department in 2004 as a paramedic firefighter and eventually promoted to company officer. I chose to lateral to Clallam County Fire District 3 in 2022, while continuing to live here in Port Angeles with my beautiful bride, Kathy, and my 4 lovely daughters, Selby, Tess, Ellie, and Grace. Much of the focus of my wife and I's life over the past 20 years has been to combat human trafficking and child exploitation. We have partnered with several governmental organizations as well as NGOs, including IJM, COTN, OUR, and All God's Children International. AGCI is also the organization which through we adopted our second daughter, Tess. It is because of my family that I decided to run for public office. I have a strong desire to help and guide the city back to a place where I want my family to live. As an employee of the City of Port Angeles, I could see a general decline in the council's ability to address major issues plaguing its citizens. This includes the reckless drug use, crime, homelessness, crumbling infrastructure, and lack of spine from the council to address these misplaced priorities. Some examples of these misplaced priorities are the virtue signaling attack and demonizing short-term rentals, saying they are breaking ordinances that they put in place while willingly collecting a lodging tax for years. They also are looking to lower permitting fees and taxes for certain types of construction while raising fees and taxes on others wanting to have the American dream of a single family residence with a white picket fence. Not everyone, including my opponent, want to live in a cottage style home, duplex, ADU, or multifamily dwelling. This dream is a major draw for citizens that want to live here and no longer want to live in metropolitan cities. The council has been unwilling to call out the homeless problem for what it is, and that's one of untreated mental illness and substance abuse, and in many instances, a combination of both. If the city can establish an ordinance that permits an operation of STRs in residential areas, they can also enforce an ordinance that criminalizes living in a tent in residential areas, which reduces property values, increases crime rates, and public health issues. We must realize we do not live in an environment with unlimited funds to support every misplaced entitlement program that we wish to have. Our federal and local government has been spread entirely too thin on the backs of the taxpaying citizens. We must raise city revenue to afford the priorities of the city, which is that of safety and health for its taxpayers. I think that revenue source should come from the millions of people that visit this beautiful city. The city should encourage the economic driver of tourism by supporting small businesses, restaurants, and public safety, thus creating an environment that people want to visit and live. Okay, I'll save the rest for the end.
All right.
Thank you.
Now we get a 1-minute rebuttal from Navarra.
I want to address the mischaracterization of my statements at one of our forums last week. When asked by Mark if I would live in an ADU or a cottage style home, what I said was that I currently rent and I'm not interested in renting a different place. I have some of the cheapest rent in Port Angeles, If my rent was raised, the reality is I wouldn't have another place to live. But I am looking to buy a home. It doesn't have to be a single family home. What I'm interested is having an affordable home that I can buy and live with my family. That could be, you know, a cottage style home, an ADU, if it was to buy, or, you know, or condos, right? But the reality is that those homes are the same price as single family homes in this community. And why would I be able to afford those when I can't afford a single family home either?
One more minute.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that it is kind of hypocritical of the city council to demonize a certain portion, and that's all I was highlighting with Navarra. Was there's a lot of people that don't want to live in low income housing. So the housing problem isn't just we need to segment out one portion of the housing problem. It is universal. A lot of it is not something that we can deal with. A lot of it is the interest rates have gone to over 7%. The median income for the United States is 75,000, which is lower here in Clallam County. That makes 99% of all properties unaffordable by most people. So it is not that I'm just saying she is the only one that is a renter and wants to own property. There's plenty of people that we can help as a city to introduce into homeownership.
Thank you. Could you both come up here and then we'll start the question?
Sure.
I can reangle the camera.
Do what?
Do you want to keep them over there? I can put the camera back.
Oh, can you? Okay,
Yeah,
you can come back here to your, if you'd like, you can come back here. and sit
Easier?
down.
Okay, never mind.
Oh,
Never
if you-
mind.
All right, so is there a question? Yes, Trent.
Okay, both candidates, homelessness, what's your plan?
Sorry?
Best way to address it for us.
Yeah, I've been very clear on this. I think that the best course of action is law enforcement. There was just a couple weeks ago, UCLA came out with a study that said 75% of the homeless problem across the United States, I believe it's higher here in Clallam County. As being a paramedic that has responded to many of the calls, the homeless problem is one of untreated mental illness and substance abuse, and many times a combination of both. So I think it is unloving and unkind to allow those people to stay in that cycle of being victims out there by the people that are pushing fentanyl, by allowing them to live in a state of mental illness that is unaddressed. So I think that not criminalizing all of homelessness, but the activity that comes with homelessness. And that is, like I said, the drug problem, crime that comes with it. I think that we need to bolster our police force. I think that we need to not only add positions to our police force, but add teeth to what they can do. Right now, I have many friends on the police force that are arresting people, and then the very next day they're released, and there is no penalties for the crimes that they're committing. I think that as a city, we should look at doing a municipal court. Right now, we contract out with Clallam County. Mark Nichols is our prosecuting attorney, and I believe he's done the city an injustice by not criminalizing much of that behavior and allowing people to live in our streets and parks. That's all
In Port Angeles, most of the people who are homeless because of rising rental prices. And this comes from a study done a few years ago from the Department of Commerce. And we know this, right? Rents have risen, property values have risen. People like me who rent can't afford homes. I mean, I was totally honest earlier. If my landlord continues to raise the rents, which she's been very, generous about, I won't be able to afford a place to rent anymore because the rental prices are just too high and we don't make enough money to be able to afford something else, right? I'm a law student. I should be able to afford those things. We have two incomes, right? These are people who used to work, people who are down on their luck, people who just don't have other places to go. And then when they get forced out of their homes or priced out, then what happens, right? Then they turn to alcohol and substance use or or develop mental health problems, right? So we have to decide how we're going to respond. Do we respond compassionately and understand that the people that are here are our neighbors? They're residents, they're family members of people who live here in this community, and many of them have lived here their whole lives. We've got to figure out what to do, right? I'm one of the first, so our city council is the first one to increase our police force in many years. And that's something that I voted to support, because we know that while our population is growing in the city of Port Angeles, a lot of our public safety services have stayed the same, including our fire department, our police department, and our 911. So we've tried to increase this, and we need to have a better plan to be able to address public safety in a way that is meaningful for the residents of Port Angeles. But when we're talking about, well, I can go on.
So anyway, would you like 1 minute more on this subject?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'd just like to address a couple of things. I believe that it is not compassionate to allow people to continue to live in a state of addiction or mental illness. It is not compassionate. So the whole thought that we need to be compassionate is, I was up at the high school talking to the civics classes and had a very similar question, and they said the same. And I said, well, it's not compassionate to watch somebody walk down the street with an arrow sticking out of the side of their head and not address that. And that's the problem that I think that we're doing, is we're saying, oh, well, we just need to put a house over that person's head that has an arrow sticking out of it. And that's not the right approach. We must attack the problem first and then move on to that. If we can remove 80% of the population out that is addicted to drugs, or that has a substance abuse problem, or a combination of mental illness, if we can remove those out, we have a better chance of dealing with that. As my opponent said, the rising rate of over the age of 65 females, that is the highest growing homeless population, but it is not the biggest. It's less than 13%. So yes, it's growing, but it would give us a better ability to address that position and remove the ones that are committing crimes and making this an unlivable city.
Mark earlier stated that what he wants to do is criminalize people living in tents. But where else are they going to go, right? There's no housing. There's no room at the shelters. There's problems, people can't find another place, right? And if they did, right, they have to have help and supportive services to be able to be successful in those houses, right? So that's why the city council voted to direct funding towards programs like Peninsula Behavioral Health's new Dawnview Court, apartments, because it provides those wraparound services and helps people who are exiting out of homelessness into permanent supported housing so they can be successful and get the treatment options they want. We have state laws in this country around how we can and cannot police, and there are constitutional laws about being able to respond to issues of drug use and homelessness, and we should be following them.
Okay, we could probably talk about this all day. Is there another question?
Both of you have talked about services and housing and a whole bunch of other stuff. Solving these problems, regardless of how you view them, will cost money. So I want both of you to tell us how you view the economy in Port Angeles and what you think it's based on, and what level of extra taxes would support the solutions that you advocate for.
Can you restate the question so those online here?
Yeah, okay, correct me if I get it wrong, but we have both, Mark and I have both mentioned about services that we want to be providing or could provide to people in the community. And the question is about what's the economic situation and economic drivers in our community, and what will we do to support those? Okay, so I serve on the board and have served on the board of the North Olympic Development Council for the last 4 years. And in that, we get to look at the regional economy, right, through county and Ferguson counties, and work with people in the trades, specifically about the economy and providing services to them to help them succeed. So that is people like our small loggers, the maritime trades, our hospital services, our agricultural sector, people who have been the backbone of this community for a long time, right? But the reality is that that is changing in Port Angeles. Most of the people I know who moved to Port Angeles who are my age came for the tourist community, either through the park or through working, seasonally, doing gigs here. And then they've stayed because it's a beautiful, wonderful place to live, right? And so I think the economy is changing, and the tourist economy is a huge part of that. And so some of the services that we need to support these folks, not only are taxes, but adequate childcare facilities in Clallam County. So nationally, Clallam County has, we're about average for women who have children over 6 in the workplace. But for women who have children under the age of 6, we're about 25% below. Women largely stay home with children when they're young. And in our community, we have so few childcare opportunities that women are unable to work to support their families because they don't have another place for their children. There's nowhere in our community. And we were just talking about it earlier. And so these are really important things. So we have to be providing more services like childcare, like supporting our schools, like providing opportunities for people when they do come here, like our hospital staff. I don't know about you, but I've gotten emails saying, hey, your doctor's no longer here. And they can't get people in because, again, there's nowhere for them to live. They cannot find housing to be here, right? And so this is all connected, all of these issues, and we need to have better services to help bring people to our community.
Like I had said in my opening statement, our government is run very thin, both federally and locally. So I think the main economic driver for the city of Port Angeles, like my opponent said, is no longer the fishing industry and the logging industry. It is that of tourism. So I think that the city needs to do things it can to increase tourism. We already have taxes in place for sales tax here. We have the ability to encourage businesses to bring in more hotel space. There's millions of people that are going to come here, whether we have hotel space or not, to visit the Olympic National Park, to use this as a step-off point to Vancouver Island, to go out to the Hoh Rainforest. That is where we can make our biggest impact to the city's revenue source. I think that as a city, the priority has been lost. We have a lot of these entitlements that we would love to do. I would love to have the amount of money to have this dystopian view of how we can run things, but we can't. So we have to get back to the priority of the city, and the city's government is to represent its people, its voters, and its tax base, and that's providing infrastructure, water, sewer, safety with law enforcement and fire, and public parks, that kind of stuff. So the basics of the city, that's where 75% of our dollar needs to go in the city, is to make sure that the city can function and be a safe place to invite the tourists to come here. I have many friends that want to come out here and want to stay, and I am hesitant at times to send them downtown in the evening hours because of the safety problem. I think that the city needs to get a grip on that, and I think that's where we need to focus our money.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Anybody got one? Norm?
The waterfront area, and hopefully you all had a chance to see it and visit it. The Field Hall Event Center is a really beautiful new facility. I've been to several concerts there and going to another one next week. It has the opportunity to really be an anchor for community use as well as being for tourist use. What ideas might you have that the city can do to sort of make that a more welcoming environment besides just the center itself, but businesses, parks, whatever it might be in that area to really increase the usage and the welcoming aspect of that area?
Mark, you first.
Yeah, I've been down there as well. It is a beautiful facility. I know that the city has built the pocket beaches that are right next to it. They spend a lot of money doing that as well. But the estuary is right next to there. And I can't tell you how many hundreds of calls I've been at that estuary for overdoses and people living in the parks there and stuff too. So unfortunately, this goes back to one of the things the city needs to do is make that area safe again. I was just down there with some friends the other day. We went, my buddy parked right in front of that and got his car broken into while we were down there. We saw the gentleman that was doing it, that was living down there, just over on the beach. I think that, you know, for people visiting that area, they want to be able to feel safe down there as well. I think that we can partner with them, and the city can promote that, like you said, is a beautiful place. It could be an anchor and encourage more tourism to our area by having, you know, I think it hosted the Crab Fest, or it's going to next year. Next year, yeah, it's going to be the first year that it's going to host that. So the city, you know, does a lot of promotion for that event, which brings a lot of tourism to Port Angeles.
It is really exciting to have Field Hall open. I'm really excited to have an increase in our music scene and the shows that we have. As the chair of our lodging tax advisory committee, I had the privilege of attending the opening and the ribbon cuttings, and it is really special to be a part of that. And so one of the things that I'm really excited for is that the property right next to Field Hall already is slated for development. It's going to be the Faro Marine Life Center in a partnership with NOAA to build a state-of-the-art, you know, facility for our Marine Center right next door to Field Hall. And then right next door to that, there's going to be a longhouse, a traditional longhouse from the lower Ala tribe. And I think that those efforts are all part of a greater effort that the city is working with the chamber on, Elevate PA, to really develop a cohesive plan for our downtown, all of downtown, including Field Hall and its related, you know, that related property. In terms of the estuary, a few weeks ago at City Council, we actually had a presentation about our estuary from WISE, and they are working to help us develop a plan to be able to daylight some of Valley Creek and to be able to have, you know, maybe one day salmon flowing through again. We know that the culvert work is going to happen on the upper part of the creek, and we would like to have, you know, a better way to have that estuary connect in with the rest of our community so that it feels more like a park. It feels more like somewhere where people want to go. It actually was the first place that my partner and I went on the night we met. And so it is a very special place to me, but all of that together has a plan for it. And I encourage you all to check out the presentation that we got at City Council a few weeks ago if you want to know more about our estuary plan.
Okay, thank you. We have a question online. You're gonna edit?
No, here we go. Go ahead.
Great. Jim, everyone, can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Great. My question, it's one for, and it's not so much of a question, more as it is a comment, but it's based on Mr. Karjalainen's remark that he blames as an injustice myself and my office for what is happening in the community. And so what I would like to do is threading a holding from a published Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals opinion, which is captioned Martin versus City of Boise. And I'll read the salient portion for the benefit of the listening audience.
This
Our
isn't a question, Mark. Mr. Nichols, this isn't a question. You're just being political and making a statement.
I am responding to the remark you made and reading a narrow portion of a binding court opinion.
So there's no
into-
question. Okay.
Our holding is a narrow one.
Sure.
Like the Jones panel, we in no way dictate to the city that it must provide sufficient shelter for homeless or allow anyone who wishes to sit, lie, or sleep on the streets at any time and any place. We hold only that so long as there is a greater number of homeless individuals in a jurisdiction than the number of available beds in shelters, the jurisdiction cannot prosecute homeless individuals for involuntarily sitting, lying, and sleeping in public. That is, so long.
Can you still prosecute them for committing crimes?
I would appreciate the opportunity to finish.
I get that, but this is a forum for us, and you're an elected official as well, and you're just stating facts, which are great, but that's not the problem that I'm saying. I'm saying, yes, you can't criminalize somebody sitting, standing with a ninth court decision, but you can criminalize the behavior that comes with it. They can't poop in the courthouse lawn. They can't steal stuff. So that is what I'm saying you're not prosecuting.
Oh, well, thank you for that clarification. Actually, we are prosecuting those crimes. And so in this jurisdiction, not only do we prosecute petty theft, we also prosecute disorderly conduct, malicious mischief, criminal trespass in the first and second degree, not to mention the whole raft of felony offenses. The fact of the matter is,
Mark, for your comment. Thank you.
us. And what is not being referred to us is, please prosecute this person for sleeping in a tent in a park. And that's largely based upon the realities of published case law, which has the same binding effect as a statute.
Mark, thank you very much for filling us in. That would be a real interesting topic, I think, for a presentation just on that at a later time. Thanks.
Do I also get to respond?
Sure, go ahead, Navarra.
You'll hear it from me on December 1st. I'll be presenting before the group. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Great. Great, maybe you'll have me back as a participant, as an audience member. I really want to thank Prosecutor Mark Nichols for that comment. There's obviously so much to say. There's even, I think, a recent Seattle Times article about State v. Boise, and a case down from Oregon, I think State v. I'm not going to remember it anyhow, but I think it's really important to talk to you about our partnership, the city's partnership with the county, and particularly our county prosecutor and the sheriff's department with the jail. So we contract those services, as Mark said, and they're really important. And they're important for a number of reasons. And one of them is that municipal courts have a huge cost associated with it. We obviously want to pay our elected officials well, just like we pay everybody. But with that is a pretty high cost. Attorneys aren't cheap. And so that is a big cost that is associated, that if we were to not have those partnerships put in place, that we, the taxpayers of the city of Port Angeles, would have to raise those funds to have a municipal court. And it's programs like that. We also partner with the sheriff's department, with the jail, and also with the chain gang to provide services to help clean up our parks and our stream beds, and to be able to provide those services. And when we're talking about how we react as a city and what does our community look like, those partnerships, our government to government partnerships and our government and private partnerships, I think are really critical. They're even part of our strategic plan that we created. And so I think it's a disservice not to credit the work that we do together through our police department, the sheriff's department, and our county prosecutor, all working together to try to work on these issues and keep our community safe.
Mark, would you like a minute?
Yeah, what I get that there is money in the process of starting a municipal court. I'm saying that if something's not working, we should look at something else. So we do pay the sheriff's department as the city. We do pay the county for our prosecuting attorneys. So there is funds there that we could shift from that to, and I'm just saying that as not a threat, but saying we can look at something as an alternative. If Mark Nichols isn't gonna criminalize somebody calling 911 180 times in a day or texting it, and the person is tying up our 911 dispatchers that are already well understaffed, and they're getting tied up with text, and he's not willing to prosecute somebody abusing the system that just gets released the very next day and does it again the very next day. And there's multiple cases of our prosecutors not prosecuting the crimes that our police department worked very hard at building a case for. So we're wasting money in our officers using their time to arrest somebody with criminal behavior and our prosecutors not following through.
Okay, we've come to pretty close to the end of our time here, so to leave 3 minutes for a closing statement, it would be your turn, Mark.
Okay.
You go first, please.
Yeah. And like I said, we must realize we don't live in an environment of unlimited funds. So we can't support every misplaced entitlement program that we'd like to have. I set myself apart from my opponent by being a fiscally and socially conservative free market capitalist. The main tenet of free markets is that of private property ownership. This coincides with our founders' view that it is our government's job to protect its citizens' God-given rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but not the guarantee of happiness. I have talked to hundreds of citizens in Port Angeles that feel the same as I do. And my opponent and the current council do not represent a large number of its citizens anymore. Our system of governance is one of a representative democracy where the citizens elect someone to be their voice in government. And I do not believe that that voice would be heard if you choose to elect my opponent. Thank you.
Thank you for having me and for giving me the opportunity to share with you the work I'm doing and what I hope to accomplish. During my time in office, I've supported policies that enhance public safety, increase housing options and affordability, and encourage economic development and family wage jobs. And now I want to continue the work that we've started and continue to build a Port Angeles where everyone can thrive, not just survive. I'm working towards a vision of Port Angeles that we all share, a safe, healthy, and resilient community where our children can attend quality schools and grow up to attend college, return or stay here in Port Angeles to get a good family wage job, and one day afford to buy a home for their family. I also know that representation is important, and our elected representatives should be as diverse as the community that we live in. I'm currently the youngest person on the city council, and was the youngest person elected to this position. I was the first openly LGBTQ person elected to the Port Angeles City Council, and I'm the only Port Angeles City Council member who rents rather than owns their home. I believe that my experiences and perspectives add value to the policies that we support on council and provide representation to groups otherwise not represented in our local politics. And that would be lost if I'm not reelected. I love Port Angeles. That's why I actively work to make it better. 4 years ago, I ran because I wanted to see positive change, and I've spent my time on the city council dedicating to building a Port Angeles that works for everyone and is a sustainable community where we can all live, work, and play. Thank you for your time. I would be honored to have your vote.
Thank you very much for coming. And good luck. Thank you. Ask everybody to vote. We got about 2 weeks or so ballots should be coming out in the mail, so be prepared.
Thank you, Jim, for moderating today's debate. And thank you to Mark and Navarra for being with us here today. Are you available to stay after for connection and questions? Okay, great.